One of the most interesting parts of paneling as an art form is how it can be used to build tension. Chapter 1113 was filled with narrative tension. It basically spent the entire time milking the build-up to the ending, but it was also full of little moments of visual tension. The right sequence of images can make turning the page irresistible, so let's break down not just those scenes, but all of the paneling highlights of Chapter 1113. Page 1 of the chapter has one purpose: build tension for the page turn. It accomplishes this by having each panel give a little more visual information than the last, while still withholding something for the next. The first few set the scene and remind us of the context of Vegapunk's broadcast, but don't show who's talking. The shot of the snail gives more context, but is framed to give a tight, cramped feeling, hiding who's above or what they're doing. The next panel shows it's Mars, and gives a wider understanding of the room, but hides Mars's face. We see that in the final panel, but not what he's looking at, making it clever, in retrospect, how the panel before was blocking the top right with speech bubbles. Mars is looking up from the bottom left of the page, and when you turn the page for a full view of Vegapunk's head, Mars is still looking up from the bottom left. There's actually a surprising amount to say about how this was only possible because, of all things, One Piece had a color page this week. But if you want to hear about that, then you'll have to subscribe to the Patreon or become a channel member, and gain access to my extended paneling analysis on everything not in this video. The brain reveal is the kind of page that could easily drown in the details, but careful use of light and shading makes sure the eye is drawn to the important parts, the head itself and the tank holding it. In a page like this, there's no wrong order to read it in. You're free to let your eyes explore it at your leisure, but I think the sound effects and metal frame draw the eye to the left, after which the diagonal shading on the head encourages the eye to come down to the speech bubbles. From there, it's a smooth path down to Mars at the bottom left. The imagery of Mars's foot above the snail makes it easy to envision him stomping it, and yet the setup goes unresolved, which is another effective technique for creating visual tension. The uncertainty hangs over the next couple of pages, where people around the world discuss Vegapunk's message, and the reader wonders if they're actually going to hear it. The snail was a decoy, of course. If there was ever an example of Oda's skill at using unique imagery to represent narrative ideas, then forget the giant brain in a jar. It's there actually being a smaller snail inside the costume. The fact that Oda got away with transponder snails in the first place, and we all just rolled with it, is itself insane. Sanji attacking Venus Juro is an interesting sequence. I like how it's paneled, but I'm not sure I love it. The positioning is clean, as the first panel sets up Sanji coming in from the bottom right, and that is the exact position he attacks from in the main panel. The bottom right is even the position of his speech bubble in the second panel, making it feel like he's shouting from there. I like how he goes from a huge distance at first to already being there. It hammers in the speed that let him surprise Venus Juro. And of course, as the eye travels diagonally into the main panel, it naturally reaches Sanji, and can even travel down the path he took to reach the next panel. All of that is great, it's just a little weird how the eye is traveling in the opposite direction as Sanji's movement, but you could argue it's a case of deliberately aligning the eye against him, to make the attack feel weak. After all, Venus Juro counters him immediately, so he clearly wasn't hurt too badly. I love how that horse bite is paneled. The eye travels diagonally along Sanji's body, but runs into the sudden perpendicular shape of the horse head. It feels like a visual interruption, just as Sanji feels being grabbed midair when he really thought he cooked. Saturn attacking the Straw Hats has more great visual tension, where every panel is a progression on the last. The first panel tells us where we are and that Saturn is there, while the second shows us what Saturn is feeling. The third then shows how he acts upon his feelings and establishes the danger to the Straw Hats. The flow of that panel is great, with the lines of the Straw Hats all pointing outward from Saturn, letting the eye flow down to the next panel row. Yet the eye can also go from the speech bubble and follow the path of the Straw Hats. The panel also clearly establishes the positions, which will be important soon. I really like Robin's little flashback. Again, every panel has a purpose. Telling us we're now on Robin's thoughts, showing us where she remembers his voice from, setting up his aggression toward her, and putting the focus on her feelings of panic. Dedicating this panel row to Robin gives the feeling that, in this moment of fear, she's caught up in her own mind, not thinking about the larger situation of danger, which lets the page turn transition into a wider shot of all the characters, where Nami can pull us out and remind us to focus on the immediate danger. I love the progression of Nami's reaction here. Normally, I'm not a fan of this kind of split face thing, it's just always looked weird to me, but here it is used so well. Remember, what happens on the right happens earlier. At first, Nami is looking away from Robin, focused on the danger of Saturn, confused at what Saturn means when he talks about the woman Akainu let escape. Then only after asking what he meant, she turns to Robin. She realizes, and as Saturn attacks, Nami takes charge to protect her friend. The moment where Nami understands what's going on and what she has to do for the one she cares about is implied so subtly, yet it's there without needing a bunch of internal narration to explain it. Fantastic character moment for one of the best Straw Hats. The eye comes down diagonally with Saturn's attack, with the imagery of multiple claws matching how he's attacking a group. It's a wider set of shapes with a consistent direction between them, instead of the kind of singular path that the eye often follows. The eye is additionally drawn down by the contrast of Zeus in the climb attack, which then draws the eye to the right with his curve. And from there, the eye can go across all of the Straw Hats and see how they're all fighting to defend Robin. Now we gotta talk about how the chapter ends. I know this is obvious, but look at this panel. The composition specifically emphasizes the sea. It is huge. It dwarfs everything human. The sea is too vast to ever be controlled by humanity. It's a reveal that recontextualizes so many of One Piece's other mysteries. Most of all, it puts the entirety of fishman-human relationships, all the prejudice, all the oppression, in a new light. Because only one of them can survive in a world of only the sea, and all the story has to do to evoke those questions is end on a single panel of ocean life. Fish, whales, mermaids, living their lives. Along with the Nami panel, this final panel is a contender for the best panel of the chapter. But what did you think the best panel was? Let me know in the comments. If you're interested in my extended thoughts on the paneling of everything I didn't talk about here, then you can subscribe to the Patreon or become a channel member. It's $2 a month, links below. Thanks to the current patrons, whose names you can see on screen. And if you don't want to pay me, which I totally get, then like the video if you're a based Ocean Cell, and subscribe if you're in your subscribing to YouTubers arc. I have a big project coming up hopefully soon, though it's looking like it won't be out next week yet, so look forward to that. See you!